Okay, this is the Water Resources Committee meeting on March 19th. It's now 7:33 p.m. I'm Les Fox, the chair. I'm going to do a roll call to confirm we have a quorum. Stephen Schmidt,
Present.
Brian Clemens,
Present.
Janet Keating Connolly,
Present.
John Markowitz,
Present.
and I don't see Brian Lynch, and I know that Dave can't make it tonight, but this is a quorum. We have 4 people here, so we can get going. So I'll call the meeting to order at 7:34 p.m. The first item is to review and approve minutes of February 20th. I'm not sure I have them. I know I had a mail snafu for a while there, so if it's possible I missed them, or maybe Brian didn't send them out.
No, Janet asked me about them this evening, and when I checked, what I sent out to people only went to John and to Kashaba,
Okay.
non-voting members. So I somehow didn't get the voting members onto the distribution list.
Well, why don't we just take it up next time when people have a chance to look at it?
That sounds fine. I mean, I just sent it to people, but if you'd rather take it up next time, that's fine.
Well, to be one, I don't even have it in front of me. So did you resend it to everybody?
I forwarded what I had sent originally.
Oh, I
If you
see
don't
it.
have it, then
You know, it's just here. Would folks rather take some time to read this and take up approval at our next meeting? We certainly can do that. Is there a preference?
We can wait.
All right, let's,
Yeah, I think we can wait. I agree
Yeah.
with Stephen.
okay, well, let's take up the approval of those minutes at our next meeting. Excuse me. As far as correspondence and website updates, Brian has made some updates to the web. He's uploaded some documents. Brian, you might want to talk about that.
yeah, I got the last 2 of the CDM reports scanned and uploaded. Becky uploaded them for us. So those are referenced in the RFQ, and when people go looking for them, they'll be able to find all of the CDM reports. The 2 that I added were test wells in Wolf Swamp and what was termed Steel Farm, although the actual test well was on the Picnic Trust land.
Well, that's great.
Okay, great. So we have a complete package up on the website to support all the references that are in the RFP, which is still not done. We'll talk about that in a second. Excuse me, the only correspondence I have is from Alec Wade. He could not, he was supposed to be at the meeting before last, I think, to talk about parking lot salting, remember that? And he didn't come, and we didn't know why. He just missed it. So I asked him if when he would be able to make the meeting. He thought he could be here tonight, coming at 7 and leaving early. Well, that wouldn't work because we didn't get started till 7:34. And so I had some email exchanges with him, and it sounded like what he's suggesting, if it's okay with you folks, is that if we would like to prepare some questions for him, he will then go research the answers and make that a report, either at the, well, maybe not necessarily the next meeting, but at a future meeting. So I guess these would be around the general topic of what are the regulations with regard to salting of parking lots, and who's responsible for enforcing the regulations. Where do the regulations come from? Some might be Board of Health. There could be planning board regulations. So this is something I don't really have a handle on myself. Some of you might, but Alec is volunteering to take that on so that we can, make some traction on that. again, I think our role is to identify where the areas of responsibility lie and encourage people to do what needs to be done. So, Jen, I see your hands up.
Sure. This came up briefly last night on the planning board meeting. And the Board of Health owns the regulation regarding salting, and it is enforced through our building inspector, but it is a Board of Health regulation. So I think the answers to your questions. I guess my question was, what, other than sort of this general water quality issue and knowing that, the salt shed, added, unacceptable amounts of sodium to that part of town, is there some current concern about salt levels? Like, what's the genesis of this renewed interest in an existing regulation?
I think it came up here from somebody. Not sure I can remember the exact circumstance. It came up in the context of Mass Highway puts down salt. We can't do anything about that. Our town puts down salt, and they attempt to be very sparing of it. They have metered spreaders on the trucks, and they actually watch that pretty carefully. But the whole area of parking lot salting is invisible to at least a lot of people. We don't know what goes on there. And so if we're at all concerned about the amount of salt going into the environment that we might have some influence over, that's a mystery. We don't have any knowledge of that. We don't know whether we should be concerned. We just don't have any data.
Okay.
So I don't. It's a good question, Janet. I mean, so if we're concerned about that, maybe the thing to do is to start with some kind of a plan to get a handle on how much is going down. Can we identify contractors who spread salt in the parking lots? Do they need any kind of permit from the town to do that? I don't think so, but I could be wrong. And then take it from there and see if Alec has any insight on that. Now, you're saying it's a strictly Board of Health regulation. Planning board has nothing on that, right? Is that what you're saying?
The planning board will often include in conditions on subdivision plans or commercial developments a requirement that you cannot use sodium chloride on your property for salting or for any use. People will use other types of things on their properties, but that's built into the approvals. That's how it gets, that's the planning board link to it.
Okay. So
but the planning board also through the groundwater protection district prohibits sodium deicers in the groundwater protection district.
In the APD.
And so you've got the Board of Health saying one thing and the planning board saying another thing.
How are they two different things?
Well, the Aquifer Protection District is zoning. And so this ban on sodium deicers applies only there. The Board of Health regulation covers the Aquifer Protection District, and it also covers all of the Zone 1s for the small public water systems. But it does not prohibit sodium deicers. It has requirements for the storage of salt, but it does not prohibit the use of any deicers the way the Aquifer Protection District does.
Okay.
So I think if we could put something together for Alex saying, here's what we think is happening. And I think it does come down kind of to enforcement. I mean, the condominium where I live uses what looks to me to be a tremendous amount of salt. And we are within the Aquifer Protection District for the Acton water system. And so supposedly we shouldn't be using that kind of deicing chemical. Well, and I think the question is going to be, does the town, I mean, the town apparently has the authority to prohibit that. And what do they want to do about it? And maybe it's up to this committee to make some recommendations for that.
Is it clear or not clear whether or not our Board of Health regulations on not applying salt in our aquifer protection district would apply to applying salt in what happens to be an aquifer protection district of a neighboring town, Acton in this case.
Yeah.
How would
Well,
that
yeah,
work?
well, no, the zone twos of Littleton and Acton are part of the Board of Health regulation.
Oh, so okay, so our Board of Health can regulate zone twos for a well that might not be in Boxborough, but the zone two is included in Boxborough.
Yes, and in a similar way, the Aquifer Protection District lines up with those zone twos for wells in other towns.
I don't have in my mind right now how the APD stretches, but it's not contiguous with an intersection of all the zone twos in town, isn't it? It's another thing altogether, or it may overlap in some cases.
It corresponds fairly closely to the zone twos of Acton and Littleton.
Of Acton and Littleton.
Right. Those are the two zone twos which extend into Boxborough.
I thought it also included areas that we are sensitive to, and that's why we have the regulation. But I'm not sure.
There might be some additional areas as well. I'd have to look at the map.
Well, so what should we produce out of this for Alec to go and help us research this so we can decide whether guidance needs to be given to the enforcement arm or what?
Well, one question might be, do our regulations only give us authority to enforce with respect to storage as opposed to storage and application? I suspect it's the former, but that could be a question for Alec, right?
Yeah.
What is the reach of the existing Board of Health regulation? And so in terms of storage gets reported to the state if it exceeds a particular quantity, a particular volume, in terms of just operational filings of properties that manage hazardous materials. So there is a way to find out only if someone's storing above that volume. I don't know what it is. I have to look it up. And if they're reporting on it.
Is there a prohibition against storing more than a certain volume, or is it just a requirement that any salt storage shed has to be covered?
Right. I don't think there's a volume limit necessarily, but it does have to be covered. And then the bottom also has to prevent, like, salty water literally from running off of it.
Right. Well, that seems like there's some fertile ground here to, pose some questions for Alec. Any volunteers?
Well, I've been working on kind of a side-by-side comparison chart for the Board of Health and the Planning Board, and it's getting a little involved. I'm not sure I want to keep trying to do that. But
well, Alec's holding up his hand to research this if we want to ask him a specific set of questions. Let me take a look
at what I've got and see if I can
his words, I'll quote, "If you request a planner's report or memo on specific questions, I can research and prepare a response in advance of a meeting."
Yeah. One thing Alec could do for us is he could map the zone twos and the aquifer protection district so we could see where they coincide.
Well, we have zone twos of wells that are just wells that are in Boxborough, as well as wells that are in Acton, for example, with zone twos that intrude in Boxborough, right?
Well, we have interim wellhead protection areas, which are quasi zone twos, I think.
Well, yeah, and how does that interact with this notion of regulation?
Those are covered by the Board of Health regulation, but
yeah, so the Board of Health covers zone twos and IWPAs.
Yes, but the Aquifer Protection District does not cover those.
Does the Aquifer Protection District refer to WPAs or zone twos? or is it standalone?
I don't think it does.
Yeah. That's why I'm curious about what is the intersection there geographically and logically. Yeah. So you're pretty sure the APD does not reference zone twos.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Although some of those interim wellhead protection districts are going to be located in the Aquifer Protection District.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should put some of these questions to Alex so he can, clarify, what's relevant to attempts to get a handle on this and see if there's any need for an enforcement. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is we have no real visibility to how much salt is going down in the parking lots and where the parking lots are located with respect to zone 2s or IWPAs, or you, Brian, you're saying your parking lot in your building is in the APD, right?
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, it's in the zone 2 for the Acton Clappic well, right? I guess.
Which coincides to a large degree with the Aquifer Protection District.
Yeah, so another nuance here. If it affects both, which regulation applies, or is the regulations the same in terms of what you're allowed to do? I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe Alec could help us with mapping parking lots, stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be a good place to start. He's got the tools to do some mapping exercises. Well, are there any volunteers to try to put together a set of questions for Alex so he can work on them, give us something back that we can, take forward?
Well, I'd like to take another look at this chart that I've been working on and see how we might frame that as questions for Alec.
Yeah, well, can I
I mean,
suggest that?
it's a comparison. It's a comparison of the Board of Health and the Planning Board regulations. So it's going to be beyond just Alec. I mean, if we send something to Alec, we might have to send it to the Board of Health as well.
Yeah, it's too bad Brian Lynch isn't on tonight, but maybe you could enlist his help in trying to sort this out and come up with a reduced or comprehensive set of questions for Alec to address. And Janet, maybe you'd like to put your oar in the water on this too. I don't know.
I'm looking at the open space. John, you'll be familiar with this, right? The open space plan. And that has figure 6 water resources map in it. Like, I think there's some mapping that's been done.
A water resources map? What does that relate to?
It's in the OSRP, the Open Space Recreation Plan, finalized May 2023.
But what does the water resource map to in terms of other?
It shows the DEP approved zone 2.
Okay.
It shows the surface water features of the town: Elizabeth Brook, Guggins Brook, Fort Pond Brook, etc.
Yeah.
It shows watersheds, community groundwater sources, non-community groundwater sources, and then perennial and intermittent streams. So, I mean, I think there's some, I don't want to put too much on Alec. He's got a lot on his plate. So, but I think, interpretation of he offered to answer some questions. Maybe it's worth narrowing down our questions to be very specific by relying on what might already be, recently published. So I got this from the Water Resources Committee page on the town website. Oh, actually, I just did a search. I did a search for Aquifer Protection District, and this is one of the documents that came up.
How recent is the open space recreation plan?
May 2023.
Of this year?
2023.
I mean, 2023.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty current.
So that, Janet, is showing 2 zone 2s.
Yep. So it's got the one that's on the Acton border, the Guggins Brook one, right? And well, it starts at Scoggins Brook in Boxborough, and then feeds into Inches Brook, Fort Pond Brook. And then the other one is the Beaver Brook one on the Harvard line, Harvard Littleton line.
Yeah. Well, Brian, I don't know. I'm not twisting your arm because you're busy with a lot of things, but you said you're already working on something that would maybe be the basis of a set of questions to send to Alec. Are you trying to volunteer to do something here?
Well, I've already started this comparison between the two sets of regulations, and I'd like to look at that and see what the next step might be.
I'm actually trying to remember maybe it was Dave that brought this up. He's not here, so I can't ask him to confirm that. But for whatever reason, it was on our list of things to work on. That's a good thing to have on our list, I think. If people are generally worried about salt getting into the groundwater, we ought to know whether there's something we could do or should be doing to minimize that. How can we influence it? And what's the mechanism for doing so? And it sounds like all the enforcement roads point to the zoning enforcement officer.
Or Board of Health.
Well, but they will also use the zoning enforcement officer. Is that what you said, or did I misunderstand?
Wouldn't they use their
use
health agent?
Well, that might be the health agent. That's a good question. Maybe put that on the list for Alec. If a violation of the Board of Health regulation, who is the enforcing agent? Is it Jim Gareffi for the Neshoba Wards of Health, or is it our zoning enforcement officer?
I mean, to be honest, enforcement is always difficult, especially with something like this. Because if you think about when the salting is being done, oftentimes it's in the evening or at night when they're plowing the parking lot because no one's there.
Oh yeah, right.
And there's no one to see it.
It'd be very hard to find out whether there's too much salt being poured down, I think.
Right, and then speaking from experience from the planning board, our ability to enforce anything is very, very difficult. Yeah, very difficult.
Even if it's in a clean-cut case, it's difficult.
That's right.
I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. It's not going to be easy to do anything, but maybe get some data.
I think basically if we were aware of the areas, then we could make a recommendation to the property owner or the management company that they try to reduce the amount of salt. That might work.
All right. I mean, reach out to the property owners and maybe ask them, we're trying to get a handle on this. Working with their contractors, can they give us an idea how much salt is being put down? Or maybe they're not even using salt. Maybe they're using some of the other de-icers, but probably sodium chloride because it's cheap.
Yep.
John, what if we were to send a letter, or the town were to send a letter to the owners of all parking lots that they are no longer allowed to use sodium de-icers because within the groundwater protection district?
Okay. Or give them a time frame. Give them a time frame. Okay. So what if they're using it right now? Basically say either within the next 6 months you can't use it, and we're done. We're almost, knock on wood, because they're talking about a snowstorm on the weekend. So I was going to say we're almost done with the snow, but we're from New England. We know better. But yeah, that's a good idea.
We should get some data. Where are the parking lots? Can the owners give us an idea how much they're putting down? They probably only see the bill they get from the contractor. They probably don't know how to tie that out to an application rate, but maybe the contractor can help. And I think start easy. Tell them we're trying to understand how much salt's going down and whether we should take steps to reduce the amount of salt being put down so that the minimum application that works is what we want. And say we'd like to work with you to address that, and this is going to be a multi-year effort, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And maybe some people are already using alternatives. You said can't use sodium chloride in the APD. That's what I got that right, right? Do we know what
Right.
people are using there instead of? What are the
You
other?
know, it might be interesting in that letter that we send to ask them what they're using.
Yeah, are they using any of these, beet juice reductions and other? I mean, putting down a lot of sugar maybe instead of salt. I don't know. No, I'm
It's
serious.
not as, I mean, right. It depends on where you put it, but it can be very slippery. Like
Yeah,
it's not, it
it's
hasn't
slimy.
been
It's slimy.
demonstrated, right. It hasn't been demonstrated to be
Yeah.
equally effective. Yeah.
It has been or has not been.
Not.
Yeah, yeah.
It could be in experiments, but like actually trying it out. What I'm told from folks who do it, actually
Yeah.
trying it out on the street doesn't always work. And there's a smell.
Yeah.
So
Well, let's
And
talk.
if you switch to calcium chloride, you still have a chloride problem.
Right.
In other words, where I live, we have high levels of sodium and we have high levels of chloride, neither of which is good in the water supply.
Right.
I had a question you guys might know about because of the salt shed and that issue, and Mass DOT made an estimate of their contribution of salt problems to specific wells, right? So there must have been a lot of data and information behind that estimate, right? And I know DOT has programs to use alternate ways of, ice control on their roads. So I think that should be on the list of things we do, like ask DOT, what are you doing on Route 111 in Boxborough? When trucks come off of 495, what's in them? They should know that, right? That should be easily, or the person who was involved in the Littleton well development should be able to share that with us if she hasn't already.
I've never seen a
don't think-
report like that, but she could probably help us get hands on that.
She
I don't
said
know.
that they were going to prepare a salt balance. And as far as I know, they may have done that, but they did not share it with us.
Oh,
I don't think they share. I'm pretty sure they didn't share it with us. But what I got out of this, the last I talked to Laureen about this, was that they had gone far enough to conclude that Mass DOT had a heavy hand, definitely implicated in putting salt into the environment. That's why they feel they owe something to the solution of the problem on this Littleton water line.
right. So there's there's obviously a high concentration happening where they have a large, salt shed, but they're also applying it down Route 111 at be lesser concentrations and diluted, but there's still high salt concentrations in wells along 111 because DOT tracks that. So my question is, where is the DOT tracking information? I mean, they were looking at making sure that the salt levels weren't too high along 111, or for whatever reason, they have that information.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's common. Well, I don't know if it's common knowledge, but everyone who watches this is pretty convinced that Mass DOT puts down a lot more salt than, say, we do as a town. They err on the side of putting down with a heavy hand. But I don't know whether the Mass DOT has ever quantified that or whether they would be willing to do something about it. You do come across areas, signs in towns, caution, low salt area.
That's right. So you could establish that if you could establish that. I don't know what the rules are about that on a state highway, so.
Don't know.
I do see it on 128 though. So it is possible to put it on a state highway. I just don't know how you would do that.
Yep, I don't know either. Does anybody have a clue about how that's done?
Put it on the list, Les. We'll move on to the next topic.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's put together some questions for Alec. I'll get in touch with Laureen and see if they're willing to share anything about salt balance and whether there's what would be the way the town would go about requesting a reduction in salt application on our stretch of 111.
What's Laureen's last name?
Pardon?
What was Laureen's last name?
Poland.
Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Very good. All right. Patch Hill monitoring well update. Well, the update is there's not much happening. Sort of a ship's passing in the night. Stephen had arranged to have a time where Grant Garvin could come and talk about his proposed project to monitor the wells on Patch Hill, but Grant got quite discouraged with the process of getting everybody's approval, going to Arkansas and getting approvals from both the Boxborough Conservation Trust and the Harvard Conservation Trust. I guess I would read it as he kind of got discouraged about all that. A lot of paperwork.
I mentioned that to Conscom, and they kind of leapt into action. They voted to approve it.
Your Conscom voted to approve it, right?
Yeah, and Liz Markowitz is going to get the concurrence from the two trusts. I thought you might have already done that.
The two trusts did send a letter of I'm fishing for the right word, not consent, but letters of approval for the going ahead with the project. Now, the thing is, it's kind of coming through us because Grant did not want to deal with all the red tape.
Yeah, right.
We'd be happy if this committee would take care of all that and pave the way. And that was all happening kind of in parallel. At about the time, I think he just finally said, it's too much. I don't want to do it anymore. So it's not clear to me he wants to even help with measuring levels or anything like that.
Okay.
But the letters that were sent implied that if we did anything, we would be keeping them updated. So I don't know whether we just forget about this whole thing about measurements and so forth, because Grant, you know, has other things to do and so on. But it brings up another question, which is, okay, now we know that there are tapped monitoring wells up on the Patch Hill land. What's supposed to be done with those? I mean, maybe there's an abandonment process, but that DEP has that town hasn't done yet. And so what do we do about that? Should we do something about that? We ought to find out about that, perhaps.
Well, is Grant still interested?
Brian thinks he's discouraged and not interested. I'm not sure he's completely discouraged. If we were to make it so that he wouldn't have to do anything except take measurements, he might be happy. But we haven't actually had that conversation. So.
I didn't think there was any more approvals he had to get beyond what's already been done. Like Conscom approved this project.
Right, and the two trusts have done the same thing, but now the prime mover has said, "I've had it."
Okay.
He didn't even want to attend the meeting tonight.
Right, I invited him to attend the meeting, sent me agenda. Oh, thanks, don't really want to. No, I think I'm still on the floor. When I get back, I'm going to sit down with Grant and see, and are you really done, or do you want to help out here? If you were willing to take care of some of the red tape. But even if we do that, somebody has to, you know, do it, you know, work whatever has to be worked. So if Grant's not really willing to go out and put in his transducer and collect data and report on it, and then we don't have anything to do, except address the question of, should those wells be properly abandoned according to whatever rules apply? And we sort of think that there are DEP rules about leaving open wells in the ground. Janet, you may know something about that. What do you know about that?
I know a little bit about it, but it's also not the Water Resources Committee's responsibility. It would then fall on the property owners, the trusts that own the property, to abandon those wells.
I really don't understand who owns the dirt. These are restrictions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's town property, I think, with a conservation restriction. So it gets a little hazy to me about who actually owns that responsibility. It might be a joint responsibility. So
No, I think it's clear. The town owns the property.
The town owns the land.
yeah,
Then why did we need approvals from the trusts?
because of
They
the
hold
conservation restriction.
Oh, the restriction, oh, they have to
Right.
approve activities. Yeah. Okay,
Right.
got it. All right, so the DEP does have a monitoring well abandonment requirement. When you're done, you pull the well and you backfill it. And then you have a well driller fill out a log that says this well was abandoned on this date, and here's how I finished it off. I tremie grouted the top, I restored the grade, whatever. So that log gets filed with DEP and it's maintained in a database. It's just an online place where PDFs of the logs get uploaded.
So this is a
Where are
project
those
that's,
regulations, Janet?
I'm sorry?
Where are those regulations?
Well, there's the thing. This is for monitoring wells that were installed for the purposes of investigations under the Massachusetts contingency plan. So if you were investigating for the purposes of identifying potential contamination, then you would pull these wells. Hold on, let me finish. People put in wells not under the auspices of Chapter 21E, not under the Massachusetts contingency plan, but for other purposes. So to the extent that those have to be removed, I don't know what the regulations say about it. I think it is advisable to do so that there is not a direct conduit from the ground surface to the subsurface through that PVC pipe.
yeah, these are cast iron pipes.
Oh,
galvanized. I guess they're galvanized. These are so old, no one knows what really went on. And I think there's a belief that there was a proposed development at one time, and there were monitoring wells in place by the developer or owner at the time for the purposes of investigation. I'm not sure there was any kind of concern about contamination. I just don't know. I don't think anyone really knows, except that their pipes are still there. And so Grant got interested in seeing whether they could provide a useful window into groundwater level monitoring. So now that we know,
as long as the wells are capped and they're locked, and there really isn't, you're not allowing a pathway for contamination to get into the well and then down into the subsurface. So, as long as you maintain a well, you can keep it around. But if you're not going to maintain it, if you think it could be subject to damage or vandalism or something like that, then it would be wiser to remove it. I do think there's an opportunity here to get some data. It's easy enough to collect, as Grant has described. So I would support that being done. But we would also have to identify someone else in town, and it's not myself, who could, take that on in the future. Like, how long do you want to get data for? What time period are we talking about? So.
What I had thought as an alternative to what Grant had proposed was that we sort of try to advise the Conservation Commission as the owner about what their responsibilities are. Mm-hmm. So as for instance, like I hear what you're saying, Janet, and I believe from what Grant described is one of those wells does not have a padlock on it. So one of our recommendations to the Conservation Commission would be that well has to have a padlock on it. And the other thing I thought we might do is Grant doesn't want to participate, but he might loan us his well logger, which we could see we could measure what the depth of the well is, and we could find out what the water level, what the water table is. And that might indicate to us whether those wells could be useful for monitoring in the future. Mm-hmm. That would be kind of an abbreviated version of what Grant was proposing.
Yeah, that's good.
Brian, do we have well installation logs for these? Or we don't know?
Do we have what?
Well installation logs. These are logs that say we advanced the boring this deep and we put in, like you said, you knew they were cast iron or whatever they are. This is the material we use for the well construction.
Brian, do I recall somebody, you or Brian or Grant, saying they could not find any driller logs for these wells?
Yeah, I don't know if they show up in the DEP database, which is oftentimes very difficult to use because in a development project, sometimes they don't have an address for the project. Mm-hmm. So they could be in there, and we might not have any way of knowing it.
So this is a project that started as a nice idea, good science project. Now it's moving into the realm of no good deed goes unpunished.
Well, I mean, if people are really interested in it, we could make it a useful project. I mean, there's an environmental club at the high school. This is work that's easily done by high school students once they're trained. The data logger is it's a piece of equipment. You turn it on, you put it down, beep, you write down the number. It's something students could be trained on. It gives them exposure. If it's clean, like we'd have to know these are clean wells. It could be something for the community to get engaged in. And once the transducer is in there, then it's just data collection, and data reduction is also a useful educational thing. So I think there could be some value to it, beyond just having that direct information. I wouldn't give up hope altogether.
Oh, yeah.
There is another Tufts professor in town who's a geology professor who is in this same line of work, and we could reach out to her and see if she was interested, right? So
Isn't
How
she,
expensive is the equipment that Grant has?
I don't know. I know.
What was your
I'm
question,
guessing-
John?
I'm guessing the data
Just wondering how
logger,
expensive the equipment is that Grant has.
To buy it?
Well, I'm just wondering, I mean, if it's something that we could use, or maybe we can get Grant interested again.
Don't know. The thing is, if we're going to do anything, somebody has to be on this committee involved in it, and I'm not holding up my hand to do it.
Well,
They got
when would
plenty of other
when
fish
would
to
this
fry.
happen? When would this happen? Because I can't do anything until after tax season is over.
It does. There's nothing urgent here. We could work this into almost any kind of schedule.
And there's not that many wells, right?
Is it 4 or 6? I don't remember.
was it 5?
Somewhere in that range, a handful.
I mean, I'd be happy to go, and if someone would show me what to do after tax season, I'd be happy to do that.
Well, that's a conversation maybe you could have with Grant if he wants to. I have a feeling he really would like to do the science, but doesn't want to get involved in, the red tape.
Right. I don't blame them.
Yeah, me either. And for me, I'm not going to volunteer anyone here. They'd have to volunteer themselves.
All right.
I mean-
If you could get me, if anybody has Grant's contact information, I might reach out to him, but I can't really do much till tax season's over.
I could send an email to Grant and say, you would like to follow up with him to see, is this dead?
Sure.
Or is this, that movie, The Princess Bride? Did people ever see that movie? He's not dead. He's just mostly
Yes.
dead,
Yes.
Right.
So is this project dead or is it just mostly dead? I think maybe it could be resurrected, if it could give Grant a helping hand. Why don't I
Well,
send
consider the possibility that these wells are not going to be suitable for long-term.
Well, I mean, like you and I were talking, Brian, a easy first. Well, again, some hands have to do this. It doesn't happen automatically. Go there,
Right.
get the caps off, drop some kind of a probe down there, and find out, can we detect where the standing water level is, or maybe they're all collapsed and filled in, and we don't even know. And then decide, okay, given that, is it worth doing something more? And if so, what should that be? And which of the wells look like the most promising one? Somebody who would have to investigate and make a little plan.
Yep.
So,
okay.
Anyway, but I mean, this is on the way back burner as far as I'm concerned. This was advocated by Grant as a nice project to do, and it did sound appealing given that he was willing to do it. But he ran into the red tape buzzsaw, and I don't blame him for being discouraged.
Where we're at now is there's approvals for him to go out and measure the water levels in those 5 wells, right?
Right.
Oh,
So
that
we have that.
Conscom is given its green light, and the 2 trusts have. So the ball's in our court if you want to do anything.
But the way the approvals letters were written, it was for Grant to specifically do this.
They expected Grant to do it, yes.
And to do the kind of monitoring that he was proposing, which we're not
Right.
equipped to do.
Right. So
So
that's
if we
another
were to
question.
proceed, I think we would have to go to the Conservation Commission and explain what we're doing differently.
And who would be the contact person?
Well, you can talk to Sam directly.
What?
You can talk to Sam, he's the head of the Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
That's what you're asking, right?
But we need to decide what we want to do first.
Yeah.
John, you're on mute. Looks like you're trying to talk.
I was just going to say, why don't we talk to Grant first? And
Yeah.
see if he's still interested. Then we're not doing something different. Then the approvals that we have are still good. And then try to go from there.
I would think that the two trusts would be happy if we want to take it on. They might have to write a different letter, but it's probably not a big deal.
Well, I think if anything, what we're proposing is scaling back what Grant proposed. So any
Right.
approvals that
Yeah.
they had given us should essentially be covered already.
I think they'd be happy with getting any information that's available about those wells.
Mhm.
Yeah, including when you take the cap off one of them, make some examination of is the pipe still have good integrity and it's not collapsing and letting surface contamination get in. So anyway, first step is John, we'll get a way for you to talk to Grant and see if you want to
Okay.
do something.
Yeah, let's do that.
I wouldn't mind joining the conversation, but it's not going to be until late or in April. And it sounds like that would be your plan too.
Yep.
Or anybody else who wants to join in the party. Well, there's not a whole lot to report on the RFQ.
So Les, what's the latest that you've heard?
Sorry, somebody, Stevens, coughing.
Les, what's the latest that you've heard?
John, Michael Johns actually read the RFQ very carefully and marked it up. Council reviewed it and changed it into an RFP. And under some kind of a rule or a process whereby it's part of a master planning process and it has more degrees of freedom than I was aware of. And that sort of we can have our cake and eat it too. We can do qualifications-based sourcing. We can write an RFP for a project. We can have it stretch over multiple years, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when I talked to Mike about that, I said, it's not obvious when you look at this thing, and it seems to me there's some language missing, and he agreed with me, and he said he would talk to Matt Furr, the council, about that and put in a few sentences that would tie it better together and give it back to us. That was many weeks ago. And Matt even pinged us the other day and said, "Do you guys need me for anything?" And Mike said, "No, we're all set." I just think Mike's been too buried with town meeting preparation and so forth to pay much attention, frankly. So I think this is going to be on the back burner until I can get back and talk to him, or somebody else might wander in and talk to him. Last I talked to Rajan, I said, Mike is going to add some language and pass it back to us. So hold off. He was asking me, are you ready to go with releasing it and going ahead with the plan and the schedule for having interviews and so forth? I said, no, we're not ready for that yet.
So Les, when did you talk to Rajan? Do you remember?
No, it's an email a few weeks ago.
Okay, because I was in town hall maybe 2 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah. I'd have to look at my email.
I asked Rajan about it. I sent you a mail, and he said the town council said that we could send this. We don't have to send this to everybody. We could just send it to the top 3.
Yeah, which is only one of the many questions we have. Yeah, we can do that, but we can also post it on the combis and on the register and all that stuff.
Well, when Rajan told me that we could send it to our top 3 and we didn't have to do anything else, I said, well, Alec wanted us to send it to the wider audience.
Yeah.
Because you know, if this gets to be something bigger down the road, we don't want to be accused of limiting who bid on it.
There's all that.
So
my last note to Rajan, which is on March 6th. I'm reading from my mail. I spoke to Mike yesterday afternoon. He had spoken with Matt about our goals. We sent Mike a summary of all the things that were important to us, that the project will be done in phases. We expect it to be multi-year. We want to make sure the current solicitation is understood to only cover the first phase one of the work with a funding of $50,000. We believe the scope of work cannot be accomplished with a budget of $50,000 and almost certainly will spill over into follow-on phases. We want to make sure that that's not precluded. How do we negotiate a contract with a selected qualified respondent? We also want to ask consultants to provide their own ideas for meeting the purpose and goals of the project, blah, blah, blah. And we wanted to know how to proceed, given that we wanted to sort of have our cake and eat it too. We wanted to stick with the original idea that we would like to do qualifications-based selection of the consultant. And how is that going to work? And, you know, council had this for weeks and then gives us back a completely reworked document. It's now called an RFP. But I had to ask Mike about this. He said, oh, you can do that even in the context. Well, how would I know that? So there's some information that didn't get transmitted very clearly about what we can do with this thing, but our schedule's off. And Mike at any point said that he would talk to council about clarifying with the language to make sure that it was understood what we're doing here. So I'm back to what I was said to Rajan. I spoke to Mike yesterday afternoon. This is March 6th. He had spoken with Matt about our goals and intent. Evidently, we can use an RFP process that allows qualifications-based selection and asks for pricing. Matt is to provide specific language for you and Mike to insert. Once we've done that, pass the document back to me so Brian and I can make some tweaks. He said, understood, will do. I have not heard anything back from Mike, and I pinged him a couple of times about it. So I just think he's buried with town meeting preparation. That's my take.
Oh, yeah.
So not a lot of progress to report, although Brian did get those 2 CDM documents uncovered and posted on the website. So, and also this means if we want to restart this thing, we're going to have to find out when's a good time to shoot for actually getting this thing out there and getting the interview process so that it fits people's schedule, because that's going to be non-trivial amount of work.
Well, Les, I like your idea about the fact that nothing's really going to happen until you get back and can sit down face to face with people.
Well, that may be the case. And I know that Mike is very busy. He's got a lot of things on his plate.
One of the things that seemed to happen was council saw that we had prepared an RFQ that asked for pricing.
Right.
And he had a problem with that. And he assumed that those were our priorities. So he turned it into an RFP.
Where did you get that idea? Did you infer that from what he said, or did he talk to him?
I believe he stated that. He said you can't have an RFQ.
Well, I didn't speak to him. I didn't speak to council about it.
What council did not do was ask us what our priorities were. And what we explained to him later was that it's essential that we be able to negotiate the scope of work, because we don't have enough money to do everything we want to do. Therefore,
absolutely.
Therefore, we went with an RFQ.
Right.
And if council wanted to change that, I think he should have come back to us and said,
he should have told us that what I'm doing will allow you to do that. But they came with no explanation.
So
he assumed what our priorities were, and turned it into an RFP.
He rewrote it and didn't explain how to receive that. He didn't.
So was there any communication that's available between anybody in town council?
No, Mike probably, but I only communicated with Mike.
Okay.
Now I'll tell you on another whole front related to Still Road project. I've been going back through tons of documents, including back when Selena was a TA, the board of the housing board was looking for a consultant to figure out how to do a very complex affordable housing project. You know, this is very complicated. We need help. We need to hire a consultant who's informed about this to guide us even how to do this. So we wrote an RFQ, request for qualifications. Selena did that very thorough job. I'm quite sure council was advising on it. But it has in their language, it gives all the qualifications you have to, you know, it gets down to a section that said, under fees, it says, fees will be negotiated. And that goes back to, you know, 10 years ago. So you can put fees into an RFQ if you do it right, or you can put it into an RFP and call it an RFQ. I mean, this is something of a sleight of hand and wordsmithing, I think. It would have been nice to have a little more guidance on the whole process.
Well, in the example you just gave, Les, it sounds like they weren't asking for fees. They were saying they would be negotiated later.
Later, yeah, and on the case I mentioned, yeah, the one in 2010 or 11, and we actually interviewed. We got 7 responses. We interviewed the top 2, picked the winner from that, and Selena went right to the part of the process that said negotiate fee, and was unable to negotiate a fee within the budget that we had. So that ended that.
As far as I know, the problem council saw with our RFQ was that we were asking for fees and a scope of work.
Well, why didn't he come back and ask us questions about that? I mean, come on.
Can I ask if we're okay with sending it out as an RFP?
Well, I am, if it's what I heard through Mike is true, which we can, whatever you call it, we can both ask for qualifications and also ask them to submit the price proposal for the work against the scope. And then we can negotiate the actual contract given our budget and the scope elements and come up with an actual contract for performance, which is where we were heading in the first place. Right?
So if you're going to talk to Mike, would you say, okay, council marked up, made it an RFP. We're going to go with the RFP. Let's just get it out on the street.
Well, we wanted to make sure that we really understood. I mean, that's just what Mike said, and he understood from council.
Yeah.
Because when Mike looked at council's markup, he highlighted a section that this is why I think an RFP process is the most appropriate one. I said, and I talked to him about it. Yeah, but you understand, we need to get the most qualified consultants and then negotiate a fee for the work. And he said, oh, now I understand. So that's when he said he would talk to council about it, and then it went into a black hole.
I think, Janet, I think the RFP is probably not appropriate because we don't have a scope. And we want the ability to negotiate the scope to fit our current budget.
Well, there's whole
section. We want the consultant to provide some ideas about how their ideas about how to meet the goals of the project.
No, there's a whole section of
reasons for thinking that the RFP isn't appropriate.
Look, our RFQ had elements A through O of what we call scope of work. These are the things that are important. And we knew they couldn't do. We were convinced nobody could do all that for a budget that we had. That's why we wanted to get a qualified person, then negotiate those against the budget, which he now claims can be done under this RFP process, appropriately couched. But Mike was going to provide a few sentences tying this together and making it clear. And then Brian and I were going to wrap it up. Brian did not like the way that council reformatted the thing, put the entire scope section in the back as an appendix.
Yeah, the scope that we had prepared, I feel should be upfront because the consultant needs to understand that it's being done in phases and the scope has to be negotiated. And there are items that we expect will be done later.
Yeah, and I think this came up the last time we talked, and Janet said, well, as long as it's there somewhere, it doesn't really matter where, as long as it's referenced. So I think it's based on some of your own experience, Janet.
Yeah, I mean, I try to take the consultant's perspective in terms of what will be most attractive. We want a document out there that people bid on,
Yeah.
right? So we want it to be easy to bid on and understand. And you know, I can understand the RFP angle on that. You know, it depends on the consultant. I think you can be successful whether it's you're responding to an RFQ or an RFP, but an RFP has a little bit more grit to it. It says that we're ready, we're going to spend money, and an RFQ can sometimes be seen as a fishing expedition. And how much money how much work are you going to do for free until you get paid? And the answer is not a lot. So, or it should be if you're running a profitable business. But, you know, they may be in it for the long haul. There's somebody who could apply and say, listen, I see that you're trying to figure out what your first steps are. You know, I, consultant A, have done this before, and here's what your first step should be. And here's my proposal for that. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think that's what we were trying to get from people. And
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that's been lost a little bit in translation here.
I think it's said pretty clearly in there actually, but we wanted it to be attractive in the sense that the technical parts were like the entree into this thing, not a lot of boilerplate about process.
Yes, from a consultant's point of view, I think the people who were going to write the technical part of the response would have been interested in that upfront material, the technical stuff.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff goes to the group within the company that is responsible for putting together the proposal.
Yeah.
It's boilerplate.
So in theory, my take is we're very close, but you know what they say, 80% of the work is spent on the last 20%.
Okay. It'll be nice if we could get pushing along here. And I mean, when we slip into the summer, you're going to have less responsiveness. And
yeah, no, Mike was ready to. I mean, he actually, well, the last time I bugged him, he said, "I'm working on this today."
yeah. Okay.
Days passed. I think he's very up to here with town meeting and other things going on.
Yeah.
So I sympathize with him on that for sure. So I'll check in with him when I get back and get this thing going again.
When are you back, Les?
We've decided to drive back. We debated between shipping the car and flying or driving. So we'll drive and take a little time to see a few things on the way. I'm actually going to leave Sunday and arrive late next week. I still have a hope that I'm going to get up to see the eclipse on the 8th. At least I'm going to make an effort. So that's on April 8th. It'll probably be rainy and cloudy, so I might not see anything, but at least I'll make an effort. Then things should be settled down. Anyway, that's what's happening.
Where are you seeing the eclipse?
Well, Gladys's brother lives up in Lyndonville, Vermont, and that's there will be a total eclipse there, but the maximum path of totality is maybe half-hour drive.
I thought you were going to see the eclipse on your drive back.
No, we're going to get back. Then I'm going to go up to Vermont for the event. We'll get back on. We have to be back for the 30th anyway, so the 8th is fine. Go up to Vermont. The worst it can be is a nice day in Vermont. Of course, it could be a snowy day in Vermont. You know, it is April after all, right? I've seen 2 total eclipses, and it's worth the effort, believe me. Saw one in 1970 and in 2017. I don't know if any of you others have seen a total eclipse, but it's very spectacular.
Yes, I saw when I was younger.
Did you?
Yeah, it is amazing. It is quite amazing.
It's yes, it's not, almost is not the same, when it blocks out the sun and you see only the corona. It's really spectacular. So anyway, and there won't be another one in our area until 2040, I think it is.
Yep.
You know,
So
I learned,
the soonest you could sit down with Mike would be what, April 2nd?
yeah, I'll try to get in there early April. This thing going. I learned from that Ron Vogel likes eclipses, and on the 2017 eclipse, Gladys and I drove down to see it in South Carolina. Spent the night down somewhere and drove up to find a good spot, and it was great. Ron, and I did not know this until just a few weeks ago. He said, I want to be sure I see the eclipse, so I'm going to go to where there's going to be guaranteed clear, good weather. So he and Marianne went out to Arizona from the one in 2017. It was worth it. So, anyway, there's on here, but there are no real changes in the plans for the pre-submission conference because, you know, nothing's really changed. We'll have to figure out what the dates are that will work for everybody. So hang in there. Updates. Dave's not here. Planning board, Janet, do you have anything that we should know about?
Janet is muted.
Well, I didn't know if you're going to take them in the order they're listed on the agenda.
No, I'm sorry. Do you have anything you'd like us to know about the planning board? With respect to water.
Yeah, well, we met last night. Everything affects water less, but I will say I don't think we had anything specific that we discussed last night that for the Water Resources Committee to take up.
Okay, but
How are your other enforcement things going, Janet? How's any update on that?
There is an enforcement action that there was the planning board voted last night to post a meeting for Thursday night regarding current enforcement action. So on Mass F. So that's, I believe, been posted, or at least the motion was made to have that done.
that's the one with the stormwater issue.
That's right.
For this Thursday?
That's an executive session. That's a meeting that will go into executive session.
Steve, anything other than the fact that we already know what happened with the approval for the well monitoring?
The only other things we're doing is holding hearings.
Okay. And Brian Lynch is not here, so we can't ask him what's happening with the Board of Health. So that leaves us to next meeting, which should be sometime towards the end of April. The only thing that Alex note suggested is that Tuesdays apparently are better for him than Wednesdays, but this is a Tuesday, so we could take our chances. I would just say, let's just set it for a date that works for us. We'll work on the questions for Alec. Brian, you're going to kick that off with what you've already done, I guess, right?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Let's look ahead into the calendar. That would put us about, what, April 23rd? April 23rd? Huh?
That should work for me anyway.
How about the rest of you? John, Brian, Janet?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I see heads nodding. Everybody okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Thumbs up. Okay. So the next meeting will be April 23rd. 30. Okay.
Apparently, Alec had to run a Board of Appeals meeting tonight.
Yes.
Is that correct, Les? So he was
That's what he said, yeah.
7 to 7:30, which didn't help us.
No, so I mean it didn't work. So let's get the questions for him so he can do the research that he offered to do.
Well, do you want to start the 23rd meeting at 7 o'clock?
Oh, just on the off chance you might squeeze them
Yeah.
in? That's okay with me. How does it suit other folks?
No,
Well,
I'd
that's up-
rather we work on the questions before we get them to Alex.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
sure, yeah,
Yeah.
and in the
Sure.
future, we might schedule an early meeting if it will help pull things together. So we'll stick with 7:30. And I think that's it. The German time is approaching.
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, Les.
Janet moves to adjourn.
Second,
All right. Moved and seconded. Take a vote. Stephen,
Aye.
Brian,
Aye.
John Markowitz,
aye.
Janet Keating Conley,
Aye.
and Fox says aye. Okay. We're adjourned at 8:44. And I will remember to turn the recording off this time.
My apologies for not getting the minutes out to people.